Let's get to know our new head coach, Lane Lambert. I have some clips from the press conference. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Seattle hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. My name is Erica L. Ayala. I am your host of Locked On Kraken, also a contributor at CBS Sports. Just re-upped my contract, and I'll be talking women's basketball, Olympics, ice hockey, a little bit of everything. Jack of all trades, so to speak, over there. Always a thrill to be here with you. Thank you for making us your first listen, your midday listen, your evening listen. Whenever you listen, we appreciate it. And I appreciate the community that we have growing here at Locked On Kraken. I love reading your comments in YouTube, including one comment that was like, hey, Erica, you know that the OG Seattle hockey team was called the Metropolitans, aka the Mets. And I was like, yeah, of course. As a New York Metropolitans fan, I know that. So I wanted to wear my Shea Stadium hat. These were the neons. For those who maybe don't know the history, there were these massive neons on the outside of Shea Stadium. And this hat series, this is the catcher. So it's an orange and blue neon. I mean, Shea, that's where I grew up. Anyway, enough about baseball, especially because if you're a Mariners fan, you might not want to talk about baseball right now. We'll talk about your Seattle Kraken. I have curated a few clips from the Lane Lambert press conference that I want to share with you. I also am going to talk a little bit about the PWHL expansion draft. And if we have time, I want you to hear what our guys over on the Locked On NHL Game Night show had to say about Game 3 of the Stanley Cup final. I mean, Edmonton getting a beatdown. As someone who hosts a show about a team in the Pacific Division, I can't be too mad about that. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to leave it to the experts at Game Night. We'll hear a little bit from them. If you're not familiar, Locked On NHL Game Night every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Great stuff, great energy. And it seems like our Locked On NHL fans are really responding to that. So definitely go check that out. But first, let's talk about Lane Lambert. Now, if you are subscribed to Locked On Kraken, whether you are subscribed on an audio platform, hello, audio listeners, hope you're having a great day. Or for my YouTubers, hello, YouTubers, you can see me on the screen. I'm waving to you. You can wave back if you want. I won't know if you're waving back, but it's fine. Either way, I'm going to post the full audio. I'll cut out like the little pauses and like the intro from staff. And then when they are like, all right, let's all move out of the way to take a picture, I'll cut that stuff out. But if you haven't heard it and you want to make your own opinion about what I'm about to break down, feel free. I'll have that there for you as additional content on Locked On Kraken audio platform, as well as on YouTube. I mentioned this in a brief little bonus that I posted yesterday, but some things that stood out to me is defensive culture, how defense is going to play a role in culture for the Seattle Kraken, coaching, where things stand there, the integration between veteran players and young players, but also ultimately the expectations of this team, knowing where the franchise has been before Lane Lambert stepped into the role, so to speak. So we're going to go over all of that. The first things that you'll hear is Lane. I mean, it's a fair question asking, we were promised a 5-year plan. We're going into season 5. What's the dealio? You'll get to hear what Lane Lambert had to say about that, and then a few other things that I'll break down in this first segment of the Locked On Kraken podcast.
Lane, welcome to Seattle. Aaron Levine, Fox 13. 4 years ago, Ron Francis talked about building this team through a 5-year plan. Here we are in year 5 through no fault of your own here in your first season. But how much pressure do you feel to have a winner right away and perform to that standard that is expected of making a playoff run in this 5th season of the Kraken franchise?
Well, I don't feel the pressure of that. I have an expectation on myself of my role, my job, my abilities. And again, I alluded to it a little bit earlier about, you start day one, it's a process, it's a journey. And, if you do the right things through that journey and do the right things every day, look to get better every day and stick with the process, then the results take care of themselves. You can't get too far ahead of yourself. There's a formula to win. And, the culture, the identity, the standard that's set every day is the philosophy, and you live by the standard, both on and off the ice, and you go through the process. As long as you're doing the right things in the process, the results will take care of themselves. Well, I think that when I look at our team and I look at our balance, I think that first of all, we've got great young talent. We've got our veteran players, which we've already alluded to, but the detail, the structure, everybody being on the same page, I think is going to be huge. We have a back-to-back record that wasn't good last year. That's going to change because of the structure and the detail. And so from that standpoint, I'm looking forward to getting started. The non-negotiables are, we have to play the right way, and that is the formula. Now you ask what that is. It's, I could go on for an hour talking about what that right way is. So those are the non-negotiables. Everyone has to be, everyone has to be on the same page, and when they are, you will have success. Everybody's responsible for a job. Everybody has a role. Everybody knows what that role is, and there aren't any gray areas. So my job is to provide an environment for our players to be prepared, to have success, and to make sure that they are ready to go and understand exactly what their job is. Well, you set a standard, and you don't deflect from that standard. You don't deviate from that standard. And again, it's an everyday thing. And you do the same things every day, repetition. And if something isn't right, you take care of it. You have to nip it, and so that is the key to the accountability. You can't turn a blind eye and let something slide. Everything has to be addressed, right? And so you can't build Rome in a day, and that's the whole process about from day one. You start with a process. You start demanding, and you start instilling your systems, your structure, your detail, and we go from there. But definitely our special teams. Our special teams have to be better. Defensively, we'll be better in our defensive zone. I know we will be. So from that standpoint, that would probably be the start with the focus.
And we're going to hear more from Lane Lambert. We're going to hear a little bit from Jason Botterill, but I wanted to stop there. Talking about what is going to be important to get this team on the right track, the non-negotiables of defense, special teams being better. I think the foundation and fundamentals is something that in one way or another, Lane Lambert said a few times. And so I'm very curious, especially because he said he could go on for an hour about what those are. I'm curious to see what that looks like, because this was a team that lacked discipline, lacked motivation. And yeah, I said you have to look at the coaching staff for some of that. And I mean, there are other moments in Seattle Kraken history where as a player, you have to take a little bit more pride in the defensive end, in my opinion. But I like what Lane is saying, because he's talking about this balance between defense and offense. Well, the whole point of defense is to win the puck back. And that is definitely a mentality. That is a way. That's why I love teams that have an aggressive forecheck and aggressive back check that play really well in the neutral zone, because they understand that. You have to be hungry for the puck. And the Seattle Kraken haven't always played like they're hungry to win the puck back. Will that change under Lane Lambert? He seems to think so. So we're going to hear a little bit more about the coaching staff. We're going to hear a bit more about the PWHL and what it will look like now that they're sharing a facility with PWHL Seattle, sharing facilities with the Seattle Kraken. And then I want to take you to the game night crew breaking down game 3 of the Stanley Cup final and what needs to change, aka everything, for the Edmonton Oilers. We'll get into all of that coming up on today's episode. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your posts at the top of the page and helps reach the right candidates faster. And I am someone who runs a small business. I'm a solopreneur, and I know how time-consuming it can be to find the right match. I mean, I've tried working with different co-hosts before or different people behind the scenes. Sometimes just like that Indeed commercial, right? They go on for other things. Sometimes they're just not the right fit culturally or whatever the case is, and you have to move on. And that's why making sure that you can get a sponsored job at Indeed for whatever your venture is huge. And now you can speed up that hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Thanks for making Locked on Kraken a part of your daily destination, Erica L. Ayala. Whether we're your first listen, your midday listen, or your late night listen, we appreciate you. Heard a little bit from Lane Lambert. We're also going to hear a little bit from Jason Botterill. Next up, they're going to talk about coaching, PWHL, and, a few other things that we can expect from this squad. Again, I did a quick hit of the Lane Lambert press conference yesterday on Monday. I'll also have the full press conference video and audio for those who want to listen and experience for yourself what we're hearing from Lane Lambert. How much can you know from a press conference? It's tough, but the 21 playoff series that Jason Botterill mentioned, and I mentioned that yesterday, this idea and notion, which I do believe in, that, winning and championship pedigree, championship culture comes from your foundation and your fundamentals. I'm with him there. The thing about it is you can have these ideas, these concepts, right? And the execution is contingent, especially for those of you who are listening to who just listened to my ad read. It's contingent on personnel and finding the right match. And this is where I still have questions. I'm not completely confident that the Seattle Kraken have the right cast of characters. We're still in the offseason. As I mentioned, the Stanley Cup final is only just getting to game 3. How many more games, especially considering how game 3 went? I guess we have to see. But I want Lane to be successful. I find his way of speaking an interesting mix kind of what we got from Dan Bylsma and Dave Haxtell. He's definitely more forthcoming than Dave. That's not hard to do. I think he's more succinct than Dan Bylsma, which is appreciated. But I want to get to know the guy a little bit more and get to see his plan in action. And so Locked on Kraken, once again, will be at training camp and the preseason to see it boots on the ground. And that's really what it is. He can say anything he wants in the press conference. Not that I think that's what he did, but at the ultimate test, and that's why I played that question for you, the ultimate test is how this team performs. Because as the question was stated, to no fault of his own, this organization, this franchise, and this fan base has been promised success, hitting the stride of success in season 5. And we've been on a decelerating path since season 2. So, Lane, buddy, you might say you're not feeling the pressure and that it's all about process. And I'm with you, my guy. But you just entered into a scenario where a team got rid of a coach after 1 year and you're their third in 5, going on 5 seasons. There's an expectation here. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot that has to be cleaned up. And I think Jason Botterill's position is equally as tough, if not tougher. But we're expecting results. And how do you do that when you have to integrate young talent? Well, let's hear what Jason and Lane had to say about that.
I think young players used in the right moments at the right times can help you win. No question about it.
And I would just follow up on that a little bit too. Is just look, we have young players in the National Hockey League that are clearly National Hockey League players. In Matty Beniers, Shane Wright, Riker Evans, they've proven that they certainly can be here. It's our job of our staff in Coachella Valley, led by Derek Laxdal, and our player development staff, led by Jeff Tambolini, to now prepare these players to be ready for National Hockey League games so that they're ready to be inserted in the lineup. It's not Lane's job just to develop a junior player to create and put him in the National Hockey League. It's our job, the staff, to give Lane players who are ready to play National Hockey League games.
I really like that response. Just want to pause there because it goes to again, my everydayers and OGers. You know that I talked to Tad O'Had. He's our head coach and GM of the Kansas City Mavericks. I keep up as much as possible with the Coachella Valley Firebirds. And what I hear from Tad in particular is that there is a seamless weekly conversation from from ECHL, AHL, there it goes, and the NHL club. So the systems that they run, what the expectations are communicated every step of the way. I've done a lot of reporting. My everydayers know this. I've done a lot of reporting on this. And so I love that Jason mentioned that. But also, some of that has to happen in real time with the club. And that, of course, makes us wonder about the rest of the coaching staff. But Lane and Jason addressed that too. Let's go back to the beautiful bean footage, or just the press conference.
First of all, Jess will be back. I've had some good conversations with her. She's been integral in the development of some of our young players, so she'll be back. We are going through the process of evaluating, we're in a position right now to find the best people to add to the staff and put them in a position to have success.
When you figure out who is going to fill that role, what will you be looking for in that person, and how will you hope them to continue developing the performances of Decord and Grubauer on the ice?
No, I think it's going to be an important piece for our organization. Not only an NHL goalie coach doesn't only have an impact on your 2 goalies at the National Hockey League. That's obviously their main focus, but it's also throughout the entire organization. And obviously with some of our draft picks in the past, you saw Mr. Coco come up this past year for a little bit of a time. This is a big part of our future, and making sure the NHL goalie coach has great communication throughout our entire organization, from working with our CV staff, working with our player development staff. It's going to be something that we certainly look at. And I think it's a unique role. I think it's part technical standpoint, working with the goalies from that standpoint, part building relationships from a mental aspect. We hope to name someone in the near future here to round out the staff.
I thought that was really illuminating. Again, talking about the integration, the seamless conversation from ECHL, AHL, and NHL. But you also heard Jason Botterill in that clip mention that you have to build relationships as the goalie coach. That's what they were talking about. As the goalie coach with your players from a mental capacity. Mental as in how they're thinking about the game, how they react and respond to the ups and downs of a game, mentally, the wear and tear and fatigue that can, I could go on and on and on. That seemed to be something that, Philip Grubauer pushed back on about he never felt that his mental game wasn't sharp. He felt that he needed more repetitions. So curious to see how that continues to play out. We also did, and I appreciated the question. We heard a little bit about PWHL Seattle, and expansion draft was last night. So here's what both Lane and Jason said about PWHL Seattle coming to Climate Pledge Arena and Kraken Community Iceplex. And then on the other side of this clip, I will show you and give you my thoughts on the first roster selections for PWHL Seattle.
Your team will be the third NHL franchise alongside the Wild and the Maple Leafs to share a practice facility with a PWHL equivalent. As a coach who has seen the game change over the decades, what do you think the Kraken and this new Seattle team can learn from each other in the years and seasons to come?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was fortunate enough to be in Toronto and share that. Like you had mentioned, we had a lot of communication with the coaching staff, with the players there. I think you can learn from each other on a daily basis, and so whether it be different tactics or things like that, it's an opportunity for both franchises, both organizations to learn from each other, and I'm looking forward to it.
And I would also say that Megan's already reached out and had conversations with Ron on different ways of setting up a team to start off with, and I think it's one of the success stories of the Kraken right now is just our involvement with youth hockey in the area, growing the game of hockey in the Pacific Northwest, and to me this is just another step in the right direction.
I mean, I love it. I love it. I will be covering PWHL Seattle, so we'll have more of that integrated right here on Locked on Kraken. But we can also talk about it on the Women's Hockey Report, which is a weekly women's hockey show that lives on Locked on NHL. I am your co-host alongside Rachel Donner. And so we break all of that down. I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser because, I love you here at Locked on Kraken. I'm so grateful that you tune in every day. And so here's the roster tracker for the Seattle Kraken team. Now, some of these players were taken in the exclusive signing windows. So we know that Hillary Knight was one of those players alongside Danielle Serdachny, Kayla Barnes, and then Corrine Schroeder as well was named, and Alex Carpenter. Corrine Schroeder was named after our last recording of the Women's Hockey Report, naturally. So she rounded out the 5 picks in the exclusive signing window. But if you look at this, defender Anna Wilgren from Montreal Victoire, that was the top team in the league. Didn't quite make it to the final, but they were the top team in the league. Aneta Teralova, defender from the Ottawa Charge, did make it to the final, was huge as far as anchoring the defense for the Ottawa Charge. I really like that pick. Megan Carter, defender from the Toronto Scepters. Emily Brown, defender from the Boston Fleet. Mentioned Sardachny, Barnes, Knight. Julia Gosling, a forward from the Toronto Scepters. Jessie Eldridge, who we've had on the Women's Hockey Report, friend of the podcast, a forward from the Sirens. And Hannah Bilka, which I think is a really interesting pick as well, forward from the Boston Fleet. For me, just looking at this, you have some heavy hitters offensively in Hillary Knight, in Alex Carpenter. I think Eldridge and Sardachny, I'm really curious to see what they can do alongside players like Knight and Alex Carpenter. Kayla Barnes, small but mighty, great defender who we've seen with USA Hockey for a really long time. Again, Teralova, I really like. I think, to me, this team definitely wanted to anchor and get personality-wise some true defenders, not necessarily defenders that are going to light the lamp, but that are going to anchor what's happening in your defensive zone, which I respect. Corrine Schroeder, I'm super high on Corrine Schroeder, with the caveat that when Corrine Schroeder has a tough game, it's really, really tough. So I'm very curious to see how the PWHL Seattle team is able to build goalies around Corrine Schroeder. That being said, I absolutely love Corrine Schroeder. We're going to have Corrine Schroeder on the podcast for sure. That's not even a question. We're going to do that. So that's your PWHL Seattle roster so far. We still have the entry draft. Free agency is a little different in the PWHL, but we'll have time to talk about all of that. Coming up, though, on the rest of today's episode, I'm going to get you ready for the Stanley Cup final. We actually have a few days before the next game, game 4. So really, this is more of just a recap in case you are busy watching the WNBA, the PWHL expansion draft, even the Mariners. I want to make sure that you know what's going on with the Stanley Cup final, and that's where Locked On NHL Game Night comes in super duper handy. I have a few clips that I want you to hear about what's going on with the Edmonton Oilers and maybe what's going right with the Florida Panthers. We'll get into that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by one of my favorites. Or I don't know if we're supposed to have favorites, but I definitely do. And that's Game Time, because there's nothing like playoff hockey. We all know the energy, the rivalries, the nonstop action. We wish there was more of it in Seattle, but, I digress. The point is that getting to a playoff game in any sport, especially the finals, is difficult. It's a high price ticket, but when you have Game Time, you can find getting those super duper tickets fast and affordable. Game Time can give you last minute ticket deals, zone deals for deep discounts, panoramic seat views, and all-in pricing with no hidden fees. That all-in pricing is definitely one of my favorite features. Last minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. It's honestly a life hack. I've been telling you about this for years, so now it's time for you to get in on the action. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download that Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Now, terms do apply, but again, create that account, redeem Locked On NHL for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Seattle. All right there, hockey fans, we are going to close out today's episode of Locked On Kraken, actually taking you over to our good friends over at Locked On NHL Game Night. This is a new program that's been really successful for the Locked On NHL channel, where we have some experts with super duper personalities that bring you just recaps of the games as they go on all the way until the Stanley Cup itself is hoisted. Who you got? Can Edmonton bounce back like we saw Florida do last year, or is it in the bag for the Cats? Well, let's take you over to Locked On NHL Game Night. This is from last night after game number 3.
Cam, 140 penalty minutes in this hockey game. Game 3, 6 different goal scorers for the Florida Panthers. Cam, I'm not sure how the Edmonton Oilers recover after falling 6-1, just getting crushed. Dominant performance for Florida to take a 2-1 series lead.
Yeah, pretty coincidental. We're brought to you by Game Time tonight, because I don't know if the Oilers knew what the game time was tonight. I mean, from minute 1, Brad Marchand scores 56 seconds into this game, and it's not like game over there, but they get one early, they get one late in the first period. But from minute 1, Edmonton did not have the discipline in this game, Tyler, and they just kept skating a vapor trail to the penalty box, and it really, really hurt them. Florida, 11 power plays in this game. They only scored on 3 of them, but they get 11 chances with the man advantage for a power play that has been so lethal in this postseason, actually specifically on the road. They were at home in this one, 6-1, complete domination, 2-1 lead in the series. And to your point, it feels like Edmonton is in a bigger hole than 2-1. But let's go through this game. We mentioned it already. Brad Marchand, 56 seconds into the game, net mouth scramble. Stu Skinner kind of all over the place. They roof one on him, 1-0. Carter Verhaeghe, the late goal, just over 2 minutes left in the first period. It's a power play goal, 2-0 Florida. That was after their fourth power play of the first period to take the 2-0 lead.
Stay out of the penalty box. Stay out of the penalty box.
Feels pretty simple.
Give
right?
yourself a chance. Give
Feels
yourself a chance.
8 total penalties in that first period. Corey Perry actually gets on the board again. The oldest player in this series scores yet again. That was on a power play for the Oilers, 1:45 into the second, but Florida had the answer. Sam Reinhart, welcome to the Stanley Cup final. A minute 20 later, short side high. That's going to become a theme in this one. That was coming off a great turnover, by the way. Sasha Barkov just threw Klingberg like a rag doll in the corner. It was a bad game for Johnny Klingberg. I think he was a -3 in this one after a really solid postseason. Classic Barkov play. Does not get an assist on it, but absolutely should have. Then you get this this breakaway a few minutes later. It could have been a 2-1-0. Tkachuk just kind of curling, just kind of throws it up ahead. Sam Bennett, breakaway, no shot. 4-1 Panthers. And after that, that was the score at the end of 2, by the way. And we have brawls, basically, what you'd call in 2025 brawls, to end the first period and the second period. And Tyler, the third period, I don't think what we watched technically is constituted as a hockey game. All kinds of penalties.
Old time hockey.
Yeah, it looked like a scene out of Slapshot.
Little really Slapshot action.
This looked like the Broad Street Bullies,
which I think is exactly what Florida wanted. The Oilers fell in to the Panthers' trap.
You know, we've already talked about Slapshot so far on Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman alongside. And what comes back to me when it comes to Slapshot is the first time the Hanson brothers go on the ice. And I believe there was comment from the Charlestown Chiefs bench saying, these guys are a bleeping disgrace. And that's what the Oilers looked like in this game, man.
Seriously.
It was pathetic for Chris Knobloch and the boys before game 4.
Burn the tape. That's it. Burn the tape. I don't want to talk about this game. Unfortunately, I do have to talk about this game. Nick Sararis of Locked On Oilers here after a brutal 6-1 loss at the hands of Florida Panthers. And if the Oilers play like they did tonight 2 more times, the series is over. The Oilers played their worst game of the playoffs since the Kings series tonight. And look, we have 2 whole more days, Tuesday and Wednesday, to talk about the officiating, the Florida Panthers, the double standards, the Gregory Campbell conspiracy theories, the Colin Campbell conspiracy theories. I like complaining about officials to a degree, but on the night you lose 6-1, you don't really get to complain a whole lot about the officials. The Oilers did not play a good game tonight. They did not create enough offense. They did not do a good enough job of maintaining their discipline. And I understand being mad. I am sick of the Florida Panthers. I am sick of TNT talking about the Florida Panthers as if they're this bastion of hockey quality, that they're the best franchise in the world because they don't get called for all of the infractions they commit because they dare the officials. Call it. We dare you. We're going to take a penalty every other sequence, and we're going to dare you to call it. I'm not going to say that, though, because the Oilers lost 6-1, and they need to play better hockey, and that includes everyone. The goalie gets pulled. The game gets out of hand. It becomes a joke, a farce in the third period. Guys start getting ejected. You get those misconducts, whatever. It's over with. Flush it. Burn the tape. You got 2 days off. Reset. Come back ready to play a much better game number 4. Between now and game number 4, be sure to check out Locked On Oilers wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube.
And of course, you can also listen to Locked On Panthers with our dude Armando Velez. You know, he and I squadcast together a lot, so definitely check that out. But I mean, 11 power plays for the Panthers alone is wild. It was 17 total in this game. Neither team at better than 30%, 27.3% clip for the Cats, 16.7% for the Edmonton Oilers. So as you heard it mentioned a few times, including by myself, we have game 4 coming up on June 12th. So you got 2 days. That will be on Thursday. They play Thursday and then Saturday. for the next 2 games here. And of course, you can check out Locked On NHL Game Night. I will have recaps. Listen to Locked On Oilers and go listen to my hermano Armando Velez for his takes, especially if the Panthers can be successful and bring home another Stanley Cup. That's our show today. Again, thank you so much for listening to Locked On Kraken as your first listen, your midday listen, your late night listen, your ice cream listen. That's what I'm about to do, is go get me some ice cream. And I appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe, because I will have that full press conference if you want to check it out. And then let me know in the comments what stood out to you. What did you like about what Lane was saying? What do you want to know more about? I still have a lot of questions. Only time will tell. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Let's hold fast. Let's stay true. And loud and proud we say, let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.